going on?
If you don't know, Sam and I are the creators of MarriageForMillennials.com. Pretty much a blog that discusses God's design for family and teaches millennials to honor Christ before marriage while preparing for family. We have a podcast and a website that has lots of articles from a biblical focus to also some cool wedding stuff.
Yep.
But we decided that we wanted to kind of expand that a bit and do some video content. We always have so much to talk about. And we just kind of felt like, hey, why not just use another area to talk? So I think we use the podcast to talk about a lot of somewhat marriage stuff. We write more like devotional biblical stuff, but I think that our videos are probably going to be more centered towards relationships, things that singles can take from what we're saying, and things of that nature too. So just wanted to kind of introduce ourselves. Sam, you got anything you want to say?
I mean, as usual, I'm ready to dive right in, but I mean, it's good to see you guys on a different medium, and you guys get to interact with us, and you get to see get to see us, period. So, so we're a little nervous, but you know, we're gonna get used to it and get used to interacting with you guys more and more as we continue to do this on Marriage for Millennials.
Yeah, we want this to be extremely informal. We got notes, you know, so if you see us looking at our phones, we're just we want to be super chill. We're in our home, just got done from work, and we just kind of want to have a relaxing chat with you guys and hopefully do this every week, if not every other week. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to get into our topic.
So
what's the topic, boo?
I was going to ask you, but basically, we went to a conference this weekend, and it was Vody Bacham was doing a conference at Killian Hill Baptist Church, and when we were doing the conference, there was a lot of topics that Vody touched on in regards to choosing a spouse. He also talked about marriage itself, so that's probably a whole nother podcast and we can touch on that stuff, so we'll save that. But we wanted to kind of touch on some of those key points that he touched on in regards to choosing a partner for courtship and getting ready for marriage. So.
Yeah, and so obviously singles, this is kind of right up your alley. So the title of this is what a man should be before you take him seriously, or before he's able to marry you. The title pretty much directly comes from Vody's book. Dr. Vody Bacham has a book called what is it? What a man should be if he wants to marry my daughter. And so it's
what he
book.
Must be.
Yeah.
And then subtitle if he wants to marry
my daughter. Yeah. So so it's pretty much just like that. And we're going to be taking principles that we've learned and just kind of spreading them on to you. These are things that we used during our courtship. We actually kind of started our courtship listening to Vody, things of that nature. So all of these things are things that we have done, that we, seek God to guide us with. So been there, done that. So
got the t-shirt.
Got the t-shirt. And literally, we have Vody's t-shirts. but yeah. So that's pretty much what we're going to get in today. We got a ton of topics that we want to touch base, but we want this to be as informative but unboring as possible. So we're going to get right into it. Ready, guys? Let's jump in.
All right, so as we said, we got notes. So when you see us looking down at our phones, that's the reason for it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. So when it comes to just getting on the scene and what it is that you're going to be faced with out there in the world,
dating culture,
we have to talk about dating culture. So what are the things that you're going to immediately hit when you're getting into this whole thing about dating culture? Okay. Or what are the problems with dating culture?
Okay, I think that even before you it clicks in your brain that I'm ready to date, I think whether it's on Twitter or just social media platforms, like you're constantly just seeing and hearing the dialogue of like men and women. You got women over here telling them, men, you need to be doing this, and you got men over here and like saying, women, you need to be doing this. And we've been doing it for decades, and it's like everyone's going over each other's head. They keep missing it because nobody's doing what God said to do in regards to how you court. Really, we don't even like using the word date. How you court. And so yeah.
And I would say though, if I could add this part in, it's not that the men are saying anything or the women are saying anything that should not be present in the partner that they're looking for.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not like when women say men should not be so they shouldn't be so wild as far as sowing their oats and they can learn to be more faithful. That's something that actually should be done, at least in my opinion anyway. So, and the same thing in regards to men, maybe when it comes to the loyalty of the woman that they're with, or there's various different complaints that men have about women. I don't think that these things per se
are bad
things. But it's always wishing the other person would be this thing as opposed to being what it is that you need to be first and foremost, you know?
Yeah, but with that being said, I completely agree. There's still, some things that I think can equip you when you are like in that dating field and hey, I desire a relationship. I don't want to be single. I want to do life with someone, and I want a companion.
Yep.
So once you get to that point, I think there are some, things that will better equip you in that process. Or else, just to be frank, the game is going to run over you.
Absolutely.
I think that
it's going to use you up, spit you out.
Yeah, I think that, and especially for women, I think that we get the shorter end of the stick when it goes wrong, right? Just because of many different things, biology, men's emotions, or lack of emotion, or things like that, or pregnancy, or things like that. Women, we kind of take that the short end of that stick. So being more proactive or preventative as opposed to reactive will help you in the long run. So yeah, I think that even dating culture has changed. I think men have kind of gotten hip to what they need to say or do to get a woman to feel like he wants to be in a relationship with me, right? And so it's like, no, like what does a man need to have concretely, that's a word, for you to say, okay, he's worth my time. Pretty much like that.
And be careful before, when you meet men, don't advertise your checklist automatically, because what humans tend to do is once you tell me your checklist, then they'll somehow find a way to superficially or artificially meet your checklist on just the surface level. And then you end up invested in them, you end up emotionally invested, maybe even financially invested in some other ways. And what happens, you get let down because you basically told him what it is that you wanted, and he, as a chameleon, will change his colors to fit that.
Well, I do think that you shouldn't give it all away, right?
Right.
But I think that you should, like on your first date, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I'm looking for a relationship that leads to marriage.
Yes.
Like, period.
That is the number one card on the table.
Because what ends up happening is, as much as somebody can like try to change themselves to meet your checklist, when a guy is not looking to marry you, you will literally, you'll be like, I'm looking to date to marriage, and literally it'll be like bing 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 pew, pew, pew. Like you'll see it, like, and you need to see that way you can say, okay,
or you'll see him skedaddle. It's one or the other,
right?
And the same thing vice versa for the men. When you're talking to a woman and you tell her, I am looking to date towards marriage, I'm telling you, like, it's just something about those words, the gravity and the weight of those words, that will indeed will save you time. It will save you a whole bunch of time and heartache, because that person's either going to say, well, I'm actually interested in what he's talking about, or, whoa, that's way too fast for me, buddy. I'm still trying to play the field. I'm still just trying to feel things out.
Yeah, but I want to get into that.
All right, let's go into that.
Secret tip number 1. When a guy says, yeah, I'm open to a relationship, but I'm just going with the flow, red flag. Red flag. And this is what I mean by like men being able to catch on to the game and how it's played, right? If you just give a little bit and you say, I'm open to a relationship, but not right now, then what happens in the girl's head is they're just like, well, I can change him and get him there. And because he's not flat out front saying to you, I'm not ready for it. I mean, his actions show you, right? The lack of communication, the slow communication, just the no effort in regards to doing life with you. He's not really talking about the future with you, kind of things like that. You see it, but at that point, your feelings are invested and you're like, I can change him. And then 90 days later, you're just kind of, stalking his Instagram.
Right.
And when you can't claim the guy publicly.
And men take advantage of the fact that we know women are nurturers, right? We know, like, men know that once they've got you at least hooked emotionally, that's it. She'll be here for a while before she finally, like, I don't know what exactly extreme situation would happen for her to actually leave. And men take advantage of that. They know that you're the type of person as a nurturer who will literally take, you see the wounded bird that is on the that's on the street, and you want to take it in and you want to fix it, heal its wing, and then let it fly. That's not your job. We are not here playing build a man. Exactly. We're not here to play. You're looking for a guy who, for the most part, as far as the essentials, is already ready.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, but has a good amount of things to where you're like, okay, this guy is clearly set apart and he is worth my time.
Like, what about confidence?
I think we kind of brushed on it, right? It's just kind of like being confident in your desires, not being afraid to say, this is what I'm looking for. I think a lot of times women are afraid to say that because they're like, well, it's gonna run him away and he's gonna feel like I'm crazy. And it's like, well, if that demand runs him away, then sis, throw him away and start over.
You just saved yourself some time.
You just saved yourself. And same for the guys. Like, if you go to a girl and say, hey, I'm looking to court you and see where this goes, and hopefully it goes to marriage. If she's just like,
trying to tell you,
what? Marriage what? Then you're just like, well, great. And at least you can do that in the beginning where your feelings aren't invested. Because exactly like you said, at a certain point, it's harder to break that tie with someone once you've started to do life with them.
You want to, when I was doing sales, they always said you want to get to the yes as fast as possible, get small yeses and stuff like that. In dating, you want to get to the no as fast as possible. If there's an objection at all to whether or not we should be together, I need you to hit the door. Like, I need you to hit the door and stop wasting my time so I can go on and find the actual person that does want to commit.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to, just demand what you want, right? And don't convince yourself. A lot of women, they also do this too, where they're like, they convince themselves that they don't want a relationship, but all of their actions show that they do. Like, you see them on social media and they'll like post things like, I don't need a man, or I'm fine being single, I love being single. And it's like, the fact that you're even posting that means that you care. Let's start there. And then just the way you're still dating, you're still entertaining guys, and when they're not taken seriously, you're still getting mad. It's like, you care. Like, you're designed to care. There's nothing wrong with that. And so, be confident in your desires and what it is that you want. One, like we said, it weeds out the people who are not worth your time. And two, it honestly, and babe, feel free to chime in, I feel like it lets a man know that you value your own time.
Yeah, very much so. And it lets them know that if I'm going to come to her, I need to come correct.
Right.
The main thing about women is that women are the gatekeepers into the next generation. They are the person, like, I've heard the phrase used before, men propose, women dispose. And what I mean by that is that throughout all of creation, all male species are going to try their best to make themselves look as macho or as suitable as possible for the female mate, and she will take her pick from whoever those suitable mates are. Men have to meet the standard, and women have to choose. So that makes the woman in a particularly special place in which she has she's the entry point into the next generation that we're going to see and that the world's going to have to deal with.
Yep. And so I think I'm all about breaking things down, right? Like putting a huge command or tip in front of someone's head without kind of breaking it down to what that means will confuse people, and it will kind of make people feel like, well, I don't know where to start, right? So I think that a lot of women don't feel confident in saying their desires because if we really want to be honest, they don't know what they want.
Okay.
and women say, you know, I want a man of God, but it's like they don't know what that means per se. They don't know like how to actually break that down. So that's the next thing I kind of want to talk about.
Okay.
What is a man of God, right? And before we get into what a man of God is, we're going to tell you what a man of God is not, right? A man of God is not just like, oh yeah, you know, he listens to gospel music and he went to church like on Easter, like, you know, or he went to church, or he just goes to church regularly. That too. It's
or
like
you hear this one, you know, his parents went to church and he grew up in the church. That does not necessarily mean that this person is a man of God.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. You want a brother who actually reads his word on his own. You want a brother who
applies that word too.
Yeah.
That's really more important than the reading.
That's very much so true.
Yeah.
And you also want a brother who, does he belong to a church? And by that I mean, does he have, because typically if you belong to a church, you have accountability partners.
Yeah, you have people you submit to.
Yes, and that is very key, because if he submits to people, that lets you know this is a man who follows rank and order. Like he's a man who understands hierarchy. He's not a man who's going to, in some way, shape, or form, always be.
He's not a man that he should lie.
But you know, but what I mean is like, by hierarchy, I mean like, because there are some men out there that you can tell they're rebels. They like to buck the system, right? Like even in our culture overall, America is a rebellious culture, right? We're born out of rebellion. If you're in the South, you already know there's a rebellion there that happened. Like there's a whole lot of just in general a rebel culture, even in like a lot of our music, stuff like that. So you want to make sure that this is a man who is submitted to order.
Okay, but I would say this though. One thing I love about when we have discussions is we literally talk like best friends. So there will be times where Sam agrees with what I'm saying 90%, but there's a 10% where he would like to add another perspective. And this time, that's how I feel. So I agree with what you're saying in regards to the rebel community, but I also think that there are people who play it real safe too, who are still not good for you. Like there are people who do all the right things, all the right cards. They're in church every Sunday, but they're not really. They don't look like a rebel per se, but they're still not a man of God because they still don't apply God's word in their daily life.
I agree in the sense that they're nice guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this going on too. So there are these guys who are nice guys. They're polite, right? They'll open the door for you. They'll do all these different gentleman-like things, but they're not leaders. They're not ready to actually lead a family
Or be the head of
something. And that is something that you also want to be vigilant of. So I actually agree with you there as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you definitely don't want to just say I want a man of God, because that is too vague. And when you say it that way, what you're doing is you're really shooting yourself in the foot, because you are not allowing yourself to filter. You're not allowing yourself to filter out those weeds and those guys that just aren't pretty much worth your time. Did you want to add anything before we go into what a man should be?
I mean, I think we kind of hit some pretty good points there about the nice guys and the guy who's not a man of God type of situation. So
awesome.
All right, go ahead.
All right, well, for our next part, we're gonna go into what a guy must be. So you're gonna want to get your Bibles for this. We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back, and we are going to go into these Bible verses that we kind of talked about that we were going to go into now. So the first passage that we're going to look into is Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25 through the end of that chapter. Now, before we read this, I do want to say that when it comes to our focus and what our aim and goal should be, remember, we're thinking about missions. We're thinking about making converts. We're thinking about discipleship. We're thinking about sanctification. We're thinking about these things when we're in all things, actually in the whole Christian just lifestyle in general. Mm-hmm. You should be gearing towards those things. Mm-hmm. So even in your marriage, remember also the second thing we should remember is that the marriage is a picture of Christ and his church. Okay? Christ and his church. And then as we read that, we're going to read these verses in light of those truths.
Yes.
And, go ahead.
And although it is kind of, some of it is geared towards marriage, we are talking to singles right now. So we're going to share how some of those points can be applied to you while you're in the dating part of your journey of love.
All right. So let's go Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. I'm reading from the ESV.
Through 33?
Yeah, to the end of the chapter.
Okay.
So, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. All right. So the major thing that I want us to focus on are these first three verses that we saw in the reading. So verse 25 says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Okay, so even in that right there, we see that we've talked about this before on podcast format, but we'll say it bears mentioning again here. Love is an action.
Yes.
We'll even see that later on in the passage that we're going to read when Rose section comes up in just a moment. Mm-hmm. And in love being an action, it doesn't just say like Christ loved the church as in like a squishy love. Like Christ didn't just emotionally love the church. Christ loved the church and that he gave himself up for her. In other words, he's willing to die for his bride. Mm-hmm. And in fact, did he? Yeah, he did. He actually hung on an old rugged cross and suffered a brutal death for his bride. How can a husband, because remember we're talking about as Christ does this to his church, we too as husbands should be prepared to do, or even as suitors, as men, we should be prepared to do this for our future wives. Now, the question is, how does a man go about showing that?
And before we kind of get to that, one thing we took from the recent conference that we went to is that a lot of times people say, okay, well, I need to be submitting to this guy to show him that I have submissive qualities that I will display when I become his wife. Mm-hmm. And what we were told is no, like when you're single and you're not married, you are not in obligation to submit to that man. And what I mean, now granted, a relationship's not really going to work if you're just kind of like doing your own thing and he's doing your own thing. So there has to be some level of compromise, meeting each other halfway for sure. But the person who you're supposed to submit to per se is your father.
Exactly.
So with that being said, there's qualities that a woman should have, and we'll get to that another time. But Sam's going to talk about things that a potential husband should be doing for you, but he may not do it directly to you, but you'll see him do it to others, which will still be your example of, okay, he's worth my time. So
when it comes to, we've broken this down as Dr. Vodi Bakum has talked about it. He said it's the 4 P's, right? Provider, protector, prophet, and priest. Now, I particularly want to harp on the protector part when it comes to this thing where he says that he gave himself up for her, because that is protecting. That is the quintessential, like, I will die for my bride. I will not let any harm come to her. It will first hit me before it ever touches her, right? How does a man, remember, she's not supposed to submit to him yet, right? So how does a man show his bride that he is willing to protect her? He has to face the most preeminent danger to his pursuing her. And what is the most preeminent danger? That is her father. He needs to face and submit himself to her father. Now that is something that is very, very foreign to the dating scene in today's culture.
Unless he's ready to take you seriously.
Yes, right.
Because every man knows they have to pull up to daddy's house and say, hey, I'm trying to date your daughter. And and guys, they come to that point and they do that. But if you were dealing with a joker, you'll never get to that point. I think that's what Sam is trying to discuss.
The guy who does that, he's not. If he's willing to meet your dad, he's not. At least that's an initial sign that he is willing to stand up to the person who would be the most intimidating at that moment.
Yep.
And that's him.
And then once he meets your dad, the next step is like Sam was saying, is he willing to submit to your dad's requirements?
Yes. So your dad your dad knows you. You are the daughter. He has raised you. He has taught you. He has even groomed you to what it is that you ought to be, if you're going to submit yourself under a man, what level of, or what's what I'm looking for? What sort of quality of man should she be submitting to? He's going to choose that pedigree because he knows what's best for his daughter. Now, a couple things we should probably add in here, right? Mm-hmm. Caveats, right? So there are some parents who have not really been at the forefront in helping raise their children. And therefore, sometimes the daughter might not be as either willing, or I would say just as excited about having her father help in that aspect, because it's like, well, Dad, you haven't really, you don't ask me about, what it is I'm doing when I come home from school. You don't ask me about what it is my hobbies are, what it is that I love, what it is that I like, what it is that I, like to do and stuff like that. And I don't know if you know me enough for me to feel comfortable about you vetting the men that come in that are willing to suit me and court me. I would say that in those situations, parents, from what I've been taught anyway, are to go to their kids and say to them, I know that I have not necessarily been at the forefront, but I still feel that I can help in this process. And in whichever way I can help in this process, please allow me to be your extra set of eyes. Because trust me, once you get emotionally involved with this man, you're going to need those extra set of eyes. Mm-hmm. Because emotions cloud everything. Mm-hmm. They make you look at someone as though they have a halo over their head and there's nothing they can do wrong. Mm-hmm. But thank God for parents. We need them. Amen. But yeah, so this is the major thing that you have to say to yourself. Is he willing to confront and deal with my father first? Mm-hmm. If he's willing to do that, we know we have at least one of those qualities available. Mm-hmm. And your father is going to vet him. He's going to take many days, weeks even, to have maybe even like evenings after work or whatever like that, to look, does he have these other requirements? What are the other requirements? I'm glad you asked. So that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by washing of the water with the word. So remember, we're saying whatever Christ does to his bride, we are to do to our bride, our future wife. So in that vetting process, the father is going to be looking at your suitor and saying, okay, do you know God's word? What is the gospel? Are you someone who goes to church and is submitted to elders? Are you someone who is a man of prayer?
And you will see these things even before you bring him to your father. So like we've talked about the dad, and that is extremely important. But you know, does he submit to elders in the church? You'll see that before you even bring him to your dad's doorstep. Because honestly, women and men too, we don't really bring we should, right? Our parents should be invested in your courtship from start to finish. However, what usually happens is you don't really bring the person to your parentals until you're like, we could be going somewhere here. I really like this person. So now I want to bring you to meet the parents, right? That's usually how it goes. But so some of these qualities that Sam is talking about are some things that you'll be able to see before you even get to that parental stage, so that you can say, okay, well, is this person worth even coming to my parents because I see you with elders and you don't submit to them. Right. So things like that.
Or I see you with your parents and you don't submit to them.
Right.
So there's other levels of hierarchy that you have to always look at. Okay, every guy has something that he's submitted to. His boss at work, his pastor, elders, parents. There's so many different levels that you can look at to get signs of this. So we've talked about that he needs to first he has to be willing to step forward and say, I want to meet your father or your guardian, whoever it might be. Because sometimes we have women out here who are ready to hit the dating scene and they don't necessarily, their fathers weren't in their lives. So God has providentially set them under the guardianship of their mother. So are you willing to meet their mother? You see what I'm saying? Whoever that person is that they're submitted to, you need to be willing to meet them. Okay? And then are you ready to be that prophet and priest? And what I mean by that in these particular points, that guardian, whether it be the father or the mother, is going to test you to see if you're someone who can disciple their daughter, keep their daughter. If their daughter is a Christian, they're going to be looking for you to continue to sanctify her. Will she be edified by being under your roof?
Will she be washed in the word by you?
Yeah,
that's pretty
exactly.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory there.
And the reason why we're really just trying to like nail these points down is because when it really comes down to it, the guy who really truly loves you is saying he wants to do this with your guardian before feelings get involved and he can hurt you. Because that's really what love is. Is I'm trying to guard you from potentially being hurt by me.
Yeah.
And that is me saying, I'm going to first talk to this person and get vetted. And if that person approves, then let's go forward.
Yep. So we kind of went into the 2 P's right now. So we might as well just finish them with the other 2.
So prophet is they're going to look at you to see if you have a vision. What is your 5-year, 10-year plan, from now? Like, are you going somewhere in life? Are you actually, is there a trajectory that you have for what you picture in your mind as a man, your future family?
And I would say to the best of his ability with application, right? Because
yes.
You will talk to people and they will tell you 50 million ideas that they have, and they're not putting in the work for any of them to like come to pass. They're just kind of like clicking their heels, like what is it, Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz, and they're just like expecting, yeah, I'm not gonna follow up with this person, I'm not gonna do this, but I'm just expecting I'm gonna be at this place. Everybody has, you talk to anybody and say, what is your plan? 9 times out of 10, nobody's gonna say, I don't have a plan, I'm pretty lazy. Nobody's gonna say that.
Yep.
Everybody has this like grand idea of what their ideas are, but there are a select few people who actually are taking the steps to get to where they need to be. So again, don't just look at the person who has this grand idea. Look at what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
They should be able to show that.
They should be able to show you with evidence of what they're doing,
their actions that they're making.
And there should be checkpoints, right? It's like, don't just tell me something that you want to do 3 months ago, and then when I ask you 3 months later, there's been no progress. It's just like, I'm waiting on this or I'm waiting on that. And it's like, a man goes after what he wants, right? Men like to work, they like to be assertive, and men, like I said, they go after what they want. So if you're dealing with somebody and all they have is ideas, you're gonna be blowing your brains out of your head.
This is why we were talking about the nice guys and being careful of the nice guy. Because the nice guy is not, see, a man of God is not always a nice guy. That is a fact. There are times in which a man of God is not going to be a nice guy because he has to get what he must do done. And that means that if he has a plan for the future and someone is standing in the way of it, he is going to move heaven and earth to make sure that that plan is successful. He's not going to allow anyone to just deter his plans for success for his family. So sometimes that is not going to be being nice per se. So there's that. And then the last thing was, so we had provider.
Last one's provider.
Provider, right. So provider's pretty easy.
Yeah, does
right?
he got a job?
Right. And I think the two that the secular world look for is protector and provider. They don't look for priest and prophet per se, but protector and provider are the two more obvious ones. So provider, does he have a job? Is he gainfully employed, I should say, right?
Or even if he's in transition, again, does he have that plan in place to not let that be something that's long term?
Yep.
And when we say provider, we don't necessarily mean like, is he rich? That's not what we mean.
Right.
Because, through doing life together and just through different wisdoms that you guys will learn, or different people that you'll meet, money can be given to you today, or it can be taken away from you tomorrow. So we're not really talking about, is he rich per se, like commas, but does he have enough to be the head of his family? Being the head of your family is not just commands, it's also making sure that the bills are paid.
You know what's funny about that point is that there's a lot of proverbs on that, where there are people who are rich in the Bible, but they're lazy. They're absolutely lazy. And when it comes down to it, they squander all of it. So the point is about being gainfully employed is this man working? Because the lazy person, you can at least be sure he's bringing in something. But if you're rich and not the lazy person, but the hardworking person, you can be sure that he's bringing in something. But if you're rich yet you're lazy, you can absolutely lose it all. That happens in America all the time. Happens all the time. People will be getting inheritance from mom and dad and think that they can just live it up and be hedonistic and just do everything to their heart's pleasure. And within 5-6 years, it's gone.
Yep. So we kind of did a lot of rambling. So just to kind of recap, 4 things that a guy must be: protector, provider, priest, and prophet.
Yep.
Protector, and like we said, one of the ways that you will see that is through how he responds to your father. A provider, having a job. Is he a hard worker? Priest, does he wash you with the word? Does he disciple other men? Or does he, submit to elders in the church? And then last, a prophet. Does he have a vision for where you guys are going? And is he breaking that vision down to tangible things that he needs to do to actually progress himself or propel himself forward?
Yep.
So that's pretty much that point there.
Okay, let's go ahead and segue to our next passage that we had.
Yes, so I'm going to kind of take the lead on this one.
Right,
this one is more so loves, and I'm really not going to take the lead. Babe's going to help me out as best as he can. Okay, so 1 Corinthians 13 through 4. So love is patient.
Wait, no. 1 Corinthians 13, verse from what?
1 Corinthians 13:4.
Oh, 13 verse 4, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. I think we can stop there. So yeah, let's just kind of break that down, right? Love is patient and kind. The only way a man can truly love you, or the way he loves you, will be a reflection of how he loves God. Mm-hmm. His vertical relationship will trickle down into his horizontal relationship to you and others. So, and the better we love Christ is the better we end up loving other people. Just because, you know, at the end of the day, we know that when we do others wrong, we're doing it wrong not only to them, but we're doing it wrong to Christ. Mm-hmm. So it's just natural. Your relationships become better, of more substance, and bear more fruit when your relationship with God is better, because you know that you have an obligation as a brother, as a sister, as a suitor, to do right by others the way Christ commands us to. So, love is patient and kind. So yeah, I mean, this isn't rocket science, right? Is the person that you're looking to court you, is he patient? Is he kind? Is he envious of other people, of other men? Is he envious of the leaders in his church? Or just envious of the world? All right. Does he boast? Is he boastful? Is he arrogant or rude? And we all have characteristic flaws, but is he working on those things if he's an arrogant guy? Love does not insist on its own way. Is he able to sometimes take a back seat? And is he able to use power that you may see him have in various settings? Is he able to not abuse that power? Not have to have his own way every single time? Not
necessarily be like domineering.
Right.
There's an aspect in which if you go back to Genesis and stuff like that, you'll see that one of the effects of the fall is that man is going to be domineering over woman, and woman is going to desire to usurp his headship. So when it comes to that man characteristic, are we abusing that power and insisting on our own way all the time? Are you willing to say to yourself, you know what, this woman is about to be one flesh with me? Mm-hmm. Her brain cannot be that far off, from that. So maybe I need to hear what she's saying, mm-hmm, and be willing to say, okay, let's try it your way.
Right. Is he irritable or resentful? I think irritable is a huge one, because men and women, we are compatible, but we're not the same. And sometimes, we come from different perspectives. We value different things. And so with that being said, is the person who you're trying to court just, irritable? Maybe you're not moving too fast, or maybe you said something in the wrong way, or maybe how do they react when those human things take place? And that's definitely something you want to look at. He does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. When we cut up, when we cut up, does he rejoice in those things? Or does he try to steer you along the right path? Does he include himself in gossip or slander?
If he sees gossip and slander, mm-hmm, is he egging you on?
Yeah.
Or is he like, look, no, let's dead that. Let's dead that right now. Like we don't need to continue in that. We can stop that right here. And even one that you that was in verse 5 there, resentful. Mm-hmm. When you guys, because it's not an if, it's a when. Mm-hmm. When you guys fight, is he gonna be able to let it go? Resentment is something where it's like you guys have already even verbally reconciled on the issue, mm-hmm. but he's still going over it in his head. Maybe he didn't say everything he wanted to say, and he is just literally harboring all this hate even in his heart for the person that he's supposed to be loving. Like you want to be careful with that type of guy, because if there's a guy who literally harbors, if he doesn't get everything out on the table, mm-hmm. and he like this also kind of goes back to the thing we're talking about, the nice guy. The nice guy typically does this, mm-hmm. and he will go along to get along. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not necessary to go along to get along. Sometimes you have to literally tell somebody, look, I didn't like when you did that. I really didn't like what you did. Get it all out on the table. And when you get it all out on the table, then you can know for sure that the guy who gets it out on the table, you can know for sure is not still thinking about such and such in the back of his mind.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think that resentment isn't just limited to you guys when you have arguments, but does he have resentment to his parents? Some people, they've had, not the best relationship with their parents. So does he, we all come with baggage, right? But does he use those things, and do you see them played out in your own courtship? Because he still resents his parents to the point where it's a part of him, and right? If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature, right? And it's not to say that sanctification doesn't take time, because it does. But how many people resent their parents for what they did or did not do, and it shows up in your courtship, which will show up in your engagement, and it will continue to show up in your marriage. So that's another thing that I think is important.
Yeah, even to where like it triggers things. Like, has he? Because there's it's funny. I there's a particular YouTuber I watch, and I don't agree with him theologically on many things, but one thing he does say that is true is forgive your parents. Mm-hmm. You need to forgive your parents, and there are things that some of our parents, because no one. By the way, don't be scared to be a parent because of this, but every parent is not going to parent perfectly. Mm-hmm. You're going to mess up your kids in some way or shape or form. I promise you. But when you as an adult have started to unpack those things that that you psychologically went through as a child, things that your parents might have done to you, and then you're talking to your spouse, and maybe your spouse does something that reminds you of your dad or reminds you of your mom, right? Like those things, when those things happen, you need to be if you've truly forgiven your parents, that thing will not be as much of a trigger to you. Mm-hmm. But if you have not forgiven your parents, and because you haven't forgiven your parents, now you're lashing out on your spouse, and she doesn't even know why you're tripping, or maybe
she does know.
Or maybe she does know. But like either way, this is because of something on the outside that you have not yet concluded and done and finished. You've been resentful. You've kept that and harbored it in your heart. You've harbored it in your heart, and you haven't brought it to its conclusion yet.
Right. And so last, just kind of wrapping the love part of this up, and really our video, love bears all things. Is he long suffering, right? Can he deal with some tests and trials in your courtship? Does he give up easily? If you guys have your first argument, is he ready to kind of let things go and everything's off the table and he's ready to be single again? Or does he know how to forgive and reconcile? Mm-hmm. These are very important things that, you don't get to be married for 20 years by, giving up. Or else you will give up and you'll get divorced. And that's just the reality of that situation. Yeah. And so, these are all concrete things. God doesn't make dating as hard as we think it is. I feel like every time I'm on social media, like I said, I feel like it's almost as if women feel like they're in this clouded maze, and they're like, where are the good men at? I can't find the good men. So our video completely cut out, but pretty much what I was saying was, women are like, I can't find the good men, right? But the good men, they're right here. You just have to be willing to submit to God's way.
Yeah, man. Do it His way, man, with His will in mind. And I think that this is the best way to avoid, I wouldn't say avoid heartbreak, but it's the best way to do it that is prescribed by God. I don't think that a lot of the other ways in which you just serially give your heart away to a whole bunch of people are good for you. We even see, there's a study that I just recently posted on my Facebook about like the amount of people that you give your heart away to before you get married and your marital satisfaction afterwards. And
I think
the more people that you do that with,
we'd love to get into that too. Maybe we'll put something together.
Yeah,
another time for another video.
Look at the time.
But yeah, we've talked your ears off long enough. We're happy that you guys came and hang with us for a lot of it. I wouldn't say a little bit because I'm sure this is a long video. But yeah, we are gonna again try to come with more stuff as often as we will commit to. We don't know what that time is yet. But yes,
we got a schedule for podcasts and articles, but we haven't quite got a schedule for videos.
Not quite.
We're gonna figure it out.
We're gonna figure it out. So yes, that is it. We want to thank you guys for coming and stopping in. Before we go, would it be right if we didn't do a couple shameless plugs? First thing is the site, MarriageForMillennials.com. That is MarriageForMillennials.com. Pretty simple. Also, our social media handles. I'm Rochelle Shoyola on Twitter and Instagram, and he is
Samuel Shoyola on Instagram.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then we also have a Facebook page, Marriage For Millennials, that you can like. That way you can not miss a post. Again, we post things on marriage as well as biblical advice, and we got a shop in there as well. Also hit that. The podcast, everyone loves the podcast. I think that's everyone's favorite part. Where we kind of get down, and so iTunes and SoundCloud, just type in Marriage For Millennials in your search box and it will pop up for you. And so yeah, man, so we're out. Love you guys. We're hungry. Yeah. We're hungry. You guys take care. All right. Bye. Bye.